They thought I was finished, until one phone call changed everything. The night my husband told me he wanted a divorce, he looked almost relieved. Not sad. Not angry. Relieved. He had already packed his clothes, moved his money, and apparently planned his entire future with another woman. What he didn't know was that, 20 minutes after he walked out of our house, my phone rang. And the person on the other end said 6 words that completely changed my life. You need to check his second phone. I wish I could say I immediately understood what was happening. I didn't. At that moment, I was sitting alone on the kitchen floor, staring at the front door. My name is Claire. I was 36, married to Daniel for 11 years, and until that night, I thought I knew my husband better than anyone. We met when we were 24. He was funny, ambitious, and the kind of guy who remembered little things. My favorite coffee. The restaurant I liked. The song we danced to at our wedding. For years, I honestly believed I had won the lottery. Then slowly, things changed. Daniel started working late. At first, it was once or twice a week. Then it became almost every night. He stopped leaving his phone on the kitchen counter. He changed his password. He started taking calls outside. And whenever I asked what was wrong, he'd give me the same answer. Work is crazy. I wanted to believe him. So I did. Because sometimes trusting someone is easier than admitting they're lying. Then one Friday night, Daniel came home at almost midnight. I was sitting on the couch, waiting for him. He walked in, dropped his keys on the table, and didn't even look surprised to see me awake. Claire, he said. Something about his voice made my stomach tighten. What? We need to talk. Those 4 words never mean anything good. He sat across from me. Then he said it. I don't think this marriage is working anymore. I stared at him. You're leaving. I think we both know this has been over for a while. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For a while. He nodded. Then he said something I'll never forget. I've met someone. There it was. The truth. Or at least the version of the truth he wanted me to know. I asked him who she was. He wouldn't answer. I asked how long it had been going on. He said it doesn't matter. It mattered. It mattered more than anything. But Daniel had already made his decision. He stood up and picked up his suitcase. I asked him one final question. Did you ever love me? He looked at me for a few seconds. Then he said, I used to. And he walked out. I didn't sleep that night. I cried. I got angry. Then I blamed myself. Maybe I had worked too much. Maybe I wasn't affectionate enough. Maybe I had missed the signs. By Saturday morning, Daniel had already moved into a hotel. By Sunday, he had stopped answering my calls. And by Monday, I discovered something even worse. Our joint savings account was almost empty. He had transferred nearly $38,000. The money we'd saved for years. Gone. I called the bank. They told me the transfer had been authorized. By Daniel. That's when I realized something. This wasn't an impulsive decision. He had planned this. The divorce. The money. The other woman. Everything. And suddenly, I understood why he'd looked so relieved when he left. He thought he had won. He thought I was finished. But Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it. For some reason, I answered. A man's voice said, Is this Claire Morgan? Yes. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm Daniel's accountant. I froze. Daniel's accountant. Yes. He paused. Then he said, "You need to check his second phone." I didn't understand. What second phone? Robert lowered his voice. The one he doesn't know, I know about. My heart started racing. He told me that Daniel had been using a second phone for months. And there was something on it that I needed to see. But Robert wouldn't tell me what. Instead, he asked me to meet him. I almost didn't go. Part of me was terrified. Another part of me thought I already knew everything. But I went. We met at a small coffee shop across town. Robert arrived carrying a folder. He looked exhausted. He sat down and said, "I've worked with Daniel for 6 years. What he did to you isn't just a marital issue." He opened the folder. There are financial records here. I looked at the papers. Transfers, payments, hotel reservations, private accounts. And then I saw a name. Madison Reed. The same woman Daniel had apparently been seeing. Robert explained that Daniel hadn't simply cheated on me. He had been secretly using our money to finance a new life with her. Apartment deposits, luxury dinners, weekend trips, even a new car. I felt sick. But Robert wasn't finished. There is something else. He pulled out a printed message. It was from Madison to Daniel. The message said, "Once Claire signs the divorce papers, we're finally free." I stared at those words. Then another message. "She won't fight you, she's too emotional." And another. "Just make her think she has nothing." That's when I stopped crying. Something inside me changed. Because they had made one huge mistake. They thought I was emotional. They thought I was helpless. They thought I wouldn't fight. They didn't know who I was before I became Daniel's wife. Before marriage, I had worked in corporate finance. I knew contracts. I understood money. And more importantly, I knew how to follow a paper trail. Robert gave me everything he had. Then he said, "There's one reason I called you." I looked at him. "What?" "Daniel is planning to sell the company shares that were supposed to be protected under your marriage agreement." I nearly dropped the papers. Those shares were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. If he sold them, I could lose almost everything. But Robert had already discovered something else. Daniel's signature on several financial documents didn't match. Someone had forged my approval. Someone had also moved company funds into another account. And Daniel had been doing it for months. This wasn't just cheating anymore. It was fraud. I hired an attorney. We froze the remaining accounts. We filed emergency paperwork. And for the first time in weeks, I stopped chasing Daniel. I stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped asking him to come home. Instead, I let him believe everything was going exactly as planned. And it worked. 3 weeks later, Daniel walked into our divorce meeting with Madison. Yes, he actually brought her. She sat beside him, wearing an expensive coat I recognized. I'd seen it before. Daniel had bought it with our money. Madison smiled at me. That smile told me everything. She thought she had won. Daniel leaned toward me and whispered, "Please don't make this ugly." I looked at him. "I'm not making anything ugly." Then I slid a folder across the table. "I'm just reading what you already made." His smile disappeared. He opened the folder. bank transfers, messages, hotel receipts, financial records, forgery reports, everything. His face went pale. Madison leaned over. "What is that?" Daniel didn't answer. Then his attorney looked at the documents. He quietly asked, "Daniel, did you authorize these transfers?" Daniel said nothing. The room went silent. Then I said, "You told me I was finished." Daniel finally looked at me. "I never said that." "Yes, you did." I leaned back. "You just didn't say it with words." He stared at me. And then came the part he never expected. My attorney placed one final document on the table. A court order freezing the assets. Daniel's lawyer looked at him. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Daniel whispered, "I didn't know." I almost laughed. For months, Daniel had been planning my downfall. But he'd forgotten one simple thing. You can't build a perfect escape on top of a pile of lies. The divorce took several months. Daniel lost access to the accounts he'd emptied. The company investigated his financial activities. Madison eventually left him. Apparently, she didn't want the man. She wanted the life he promised her. When the money disappeared, so did she. And Daniel. He ended up selling the house he had once told me would be ours forever. I kept my share of the assets. More importantly, I kept myself. A year later, I moved into a smaller house. Nothing fancy. Just a quiet place with a little backyard. For the first time in years, I could sleep without wondering where my husband was. One afternoon, I received another phone call. This time, I recognized the number. "Daniel." I almost didn't answer. But I did. He sounded different. Older. Tired. He said, "Claire, I made a mistake." I looked out the window. Then I said, "No, Daniel." He went quiet. "You made a choice." He started talking about memories. Our wedding. Our first apartment. The vacations. The good years. He asked if there was any chance we could start over. I thought about the woman sitting on my kitchen floor that night. The woman who believed her life was over. Then I thought about everything that happened afterward. And I realized something. The phone call that changed my life wasn't really the call from Robert. It was the moment I stopped believing Daniel's version of my future. So I told him, "I don't hate you." He breathed quietly. "But I don't want you back." Then I ended the call. And for the first time, hanging up on him didn't hurt. It felt like freedom. Because sometimes the person who betrays you thinks they've destroyed your life. They don't realize they're only destroying the version of your life that depended on them. Daniel thought I was finished the night he walked out. He thought he had taken the money, the future, and the power. But all he really took was the chance to be part of the life I built after him.